this. Okay, I think, can you see that? Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I think Rakil touched on a lot of topics already. I'm going to go through a little bit of items as well. I think a lot of times, and this is something that Rakil touched on, it's not necessarily your analysis that's hurting you. And Rakil said this like countless times. It's like, how many times have you done a trade and it's been good? You've profited, or how many times has your analysis been correct? But really, what's going on inside your head? And I mean, it's funny because when you hear a lot of people talk and, like everyone gets upset and, they say, okay, and, you can see it online and through social media, everyone goes through it. It's like, okay, well, this person's demo, this person doesn't know how to trade. I hate this person. There's so much negative energy, and I don't like really, blaming people, but it's more of introspective. Like, you have to look at yourself. And as sucky as it sounds and as stupid as it sounds, it's a maturity thing. It's a way of thinking, and it's not an excuse. So a lot of people look at this and they'll say, we're talking about psychology, we're talking about all this stuff. It's an excuse because then you have no one to blame but yourself. But when you think about it, a lot of the decisions that you make as a trader, you're doing that on your own. Like, you're making the conscious decision to trade a $500 account, $1,000 account, whichever account that you're trading, you're making that conscious decision. Nobody's forced you to do that. The argument then becomes, well, I saw so and so on social media make all this money, and I believed if I follow them, I'd make that money. But the problem is, you're not that person. And this is the hardest thing that you have to learn as an individual. And I think when the most successful traders have grasped this concept, and people who do become successful, and there are a lot of successful traders that have come from, Rakil's group, from my group, from Alex's group, from anyone's group, have realized that they individually have to find something that works for themselves. You can't turn around and copy people. You can't turn around and say what's happening. So, I mean, this is sort of what we see, and what we see in social media, and why everybody's here right now. People turn around and they see 4, 5, 6-figure traders, and then everyone starts to chase that strategy. And it was something that I actually posted yesterday about too, is, the reason why, like, a lot of people say like Forex is toxic, or any sort of financial ideas are toxic on social media, is because people are only showing one side, or they're only showing a glimpse of what something is. They're not giving you a full perspective. And once someone gives you that full perspective, it's up to you then to take that and do what you need to do with it. If I look at myself, being 6'4", am I able to play in the NBA? No. Can I play basketball though? Yes. So I have to be able to determine that same ideology with trading. Maybe I'm not going to make 6 figures in my first year. Maybe I'm only going to make 5 figures. But understanding where you're going to fit in the pecking order according to what you're doing is so much more important than actually doing things, or saying, or looking at what other people are doing, because we don't know what everybody's doing in social media. We don't know where everybody's backgrounds come from. We don't know where everyone's financial situation's from. So you have to strip that noise apart, and what you should be doing is understanding what you need to do to get to where you need to be, and speaking to those people who are currently doing what you want to do. Not copying what they're doing, but understanding what steps they took to get to where they needed to be. And you have to then apply those concepts to make sure that you can then get to where you need to be. If I turn around, and Rakil said the same thing, if we turn around and we look at the Asian Open and we say, okay, every Asian Open, this is what's going to happen. Nobody can tell you to click the button. You have to click the button. You have to be able to hold the idea of the trade. You have to be able to execute the trade. You have to understand when to close the trade. Your risk tolerance is different than my risk tolerance, and which is different than the next person's risk tolerance. And that is the biggest misconception we've had in Forex, I think, in the last, say, 2 or 3 years. And it's the reason why, when I talk to people, I don't really talk too much about analysis anymore. And people really get upset with me because, you'll message me on Instagram or you'll message me in the groups and you'll say, Ted, I think blah, 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 blah. And I'll get like a 3-paragraph synopsis of what's happening. And I'll say, I agree. And people get so frustrated about that because they'll say, well, Ted, you only gave me a 1-word answer. I don't think you're paying attention. No, you've given me so much detail and so much thought process. You've shown me you have critical thinking skills. You now have to execute on that. What do you want me to respond to? Yes, I agree with the fact that USD JPY is at the 50 EMA on the daily, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's not conducive to your learning. I don't need to regurgitate what you just told me. You are coming to me, or you're coming to Rakil, or whoever you're speaking to. You're coming to them for guidance, for support. This is the answer. It's a yes or no answer. Will we go up or down? Yes or no? What should we be looking for? I'll add some context. I'll say, be aware of this key level, or be aware of this. But for the most part, everybody sees the same thing. So when we look at what we want to talk through and what we want to talk is, let's talk about what Forex trading actually is, what institutions do, setting yourself up for success. I mean, and Rakil talked a lot about these, so I won't really I'll push through these a little bit faster. Who you are as a person, and talking about failure. And I think this topic is a key topic that people just don't want to accept. They don't want to accept failure. They look at failure as an embarrassment, or they look at failure as, you weren't able to succeed. They don't look at failure as an obstacle. And, something that I did say yesterday in my group chat, people were talking about demo trading versus live trading. I did the comparison of, when you first started walking, if you watch a toddler walk versus how you walk, you wake up in the morning, you jump right out of bed and you just start doing it your day. You don't even think twice about moving your legs. It's innate. It's subconscious. It's something that you know how to do with just, with your eyes closed. You can walk around with your eyes closed. You'll bump into things, but the physical action of walking happens very, very easily for you. But if you watch a toddler, you watch someone who's, just starting to learn how to walk, what are they doing? They're staggering around, they're falling, they're getting back up, they're bumping into things, they're holding on to things. You have to apply that same common sense and that same degree of progress to when you're trading. You can't just jump from one thing to the next and be like, well, I'm not doing well enough on a $100 account, so I'm just going to wait to save $10,000, and then I'm going to trade a $10,000 account because I'm going to make more money that way. It's just not going to work. So when you look at the overall picture and when you actually review what you're doing as a trader, this is sort of your mental mindset that you have to be in, and you have to accept it. You just can't turn around and deny these things. If you're going to the gym and you say to yourself, I want to be able to, in the next year, bench 225 pounds, or, like basically 245 plates on each side. You can't go to the gym and you can't start lifting, half that weight if you've never gone to the gym before, just because you want to get there faster. You're going to hurt yourself more than you're going to help yourself. So, what exactly is Forex trading? Rakil touched on this. It's buying and selling currency contracts. I think this is the biggest thing. And now, me owning a brokerage and me fielding questions about spreads, liquidity, this and that, the simplest concept you have to understand with Forex is there has to be an opposite transaction for your transaction to complete. And when you're on a demo account, those transactions always complete because it's demo. There's unlimited liquidity. There's always availability. If you're on a brokerage that has a B book where they're making the market and they're not sending your order into the marketplace, it's always going to complete. It's always going to be instant. You have to understand that in the real world, institutions deny prices. They change prices. What one person may get, the next person may not. This is such a simplistic concept, but it's so overlooked because when people start trading, they just assume because there's a buy order and they click close that it should close automatically. That does not happen in the real world. Forex is a auction market. And what I mean is there's always a bid and an ask price. And that's simple. You see that in your terminals, bid and ask. It's basically what I want for this price I need to close, or what I want for this price to open. That is what you have to realize as a trader, is you're in a market, and if you're on an A book brokerage, you're not going to get the price that you think you're going to get. There might be a 1 or 2 point change. The spread might change instantly. I watch it, like when we see the flows for liquidity that comes through the brokerage, I see flows change, like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 points in a split second. And I don't even understand it. I've been trying to learn, why does it change in that split second? When the market closes for a session, there's a huge spread jump. These are simple concepts that you have to understand as a trader, and you have to accept. You are a small fish in a big pond, and you have to accept all these little nuances, that maybe your trade's not going to close at the price that you want, that your stop's going to get hit with a spread jump. It has nothing to do with the brokerage. It's institutions and their movements and what they're doing. And it's also too where you place your stops. If you place your stops right in a price zone, expect them to get hit, because there's spikes. Institutions are always trying to get the best price, and they're always trying to make sure that they are winning the most. So you have to accept that as a retail trader. And if you're practicing risk management and you're focused on your daily goal or your weekly goal, these things are just normal occurrences. I mean, I can give a perfect example. The other day I took a trade with the pound JPY, and it looked like we were going up to, I think it was 152.600, and we were at 152.500 or something like that. And I took a trade, I took an entry, and literally in like 30 seconds it dropped like 9 pips. So am I supposed to be upset about that? Am I supposed to turn around and be angry? No, I had an idea that we were moving up to that level, which we eventually did about an hour later. But you know what? The market decided at that point that we were moving back down to get a premium price level, and I got caught. My risk management was okay, so I closed the trade, I take a loss, I look again for the next time and look for another trade. A lot of people, when they see those kind of instances, they get frustrated. I look at it as, well, I had the idea, I had what I wanted to do. It didn't go my way, but in probability, in understanding the context of trading, how many times is it going to go right for me? And I know more than likely it's going to be right. And I looked an hour later, and it hit my price, my take profit point. So lesson learned. You know what? Maybe I should have put a pending order a little bit higher, or maybe I shouldn't have even traded at that point. So you know what? I make a note on my journal and I carry on. And that's what you'll have to do. You have to become numb to the fact that the market's going to do shit you're not going to like. And you know what? Accept it, make notes about it, and just carry on. And really understanding what Forex trading is. And like I said, it's financial gambling. I think this is the funniest thing when people used to tell me about, I play poker and I'm gambling at the casino. What am I doing? Well, you're doing the same thing in a market where people have unlimited bankrolls. You don't know who the big players are. You don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what they're doing, and you're trying to make a bit of money. It's all based on probability. It's all based on how many times over the next 100 trades is this kind of idea going to work for me? And that's what backtesting is. When people start asking me about backtesting, or they start talking about how do you become profitable, it's understanding that you're going to look for the same idea over and over again, various permutations of that idea, and permutation, the word being different instances, right? So if we're looking for the Asian Open or the New York Open, and we say to ourselves, okay, I want to trade at that particular point. Sometimes that trade will not happen at that particular open. Maybe that trade happens an hour before, maybe it happens an hour after, but the idea is similar. I'm looking for a breakout. I'm looking for a continuation. I'm looking for a reversal. It's the same idea, but you have to be able to apply it in various instances that may not happen at the exact same time. Because people turn around and say, well, Asian Open today was boring. Well, yeah, but an hour before that, we had the move. Where were you? Oh, I was waiting for Asian Open, because that's when the market opens. Right. But you as a trader have to understand that you're not going to see the exact same thing at the exact same specific time. It's going to be a variation of that, and you have to apply your knowledge to ensure that you are making a proper decision. So let's talk about the basics. Similar to what I was saying before, you have no control on the outcome of your trades. I know you want to pray and wish that the market moves in a certain direction, but you have no control. The only thing you can control is your risk management, and that is going to be your best friend. And if I can tell you one thing, the people who fail in Forex are the people that over leverage their account, they have poor risk management, and they don't know how to control themselves. Those are the losing traders in Forex. The winning traders take their time, grab their little bits, and that's it. When we look at probability and we start talking about probability, is, no matter how right you think you are, the outcome can still be wrong. You can still have a stop hunt. You can still have them trade go the opposite way. No matter everything that's pointing to that direction, you could still have it work out not in your favor. You have to accept those opportunities, you have to accept those consequences when you're accepting the opportunity to take a trade. Getting rich overnight doesn't happen in Forex. It's a grind. If you think you want to get rich, play the lottery. That's how you're going to get rich overnight. Forex is not something that is going to make you rich overnight. You are not a professional. You do not have enough information at your hands, even through education, through mentorship, through everything, to say that this is what I'm going to be able to do. I mean, I have 13 years of experience in the industry, and I traded for 3 years, and I'm still not a professional trader. I'm good at what I do because I recognize patterns. I recognize reoccurring themes. I recognize scenarios that I've seen before, so I can adapt and adjust. That's what you have to do as a trader. Do I still have losing trades? Of course I do. Everyone has losing trades. It's a part of what it is, but it's understanding why you take those losses and making sure that those losses don't happen again. Or if they do, you know when to minimize those losses. It's been, countless times when we've looked at a trade and we can all sit there and say, okay, this is not going to end well. It's time to exit. And you know what? A lot of times when you exit, you're like, oh, thank God I exited. It didn't go my way anyways. And a lot of times what will happen is you exit early and then all of a sudden the trade just takes off and you're like, oh, I wish I would have held. You have to be just conscious of the decision that you make at that specific time with the information that you have at that specific time. You can't go back and say, well, I wish I would have done something. No, at that specific time, this is what the markets were telling you. This is what the markets were giving you. And that is what you made or based your decision on at that time. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's another key as you start trading, is understanding that it's okay to close trades early. It's okay to, before it hits your stop loss, to close the trade. There's nothing wrong with those ideas. The problem is when you start harboring or you start, what's the word? Like you start second guessing yourself or dwelling on those ideas, that creates a bigger problem in your head, because now you're always going to be worried about what you just did. Each trade is independent of the previous trade. You have to remember that. It's like when I play poker, if I lose a poker hand, I can have a pair of aces and I can lose that hand. The next time when I come to the table and I get a pair of aces, I'm not going to be thinking about why I lost that previous hand, because this is a new hand. This is new people at the table, new dynamics, new day. Everything is different than the previous scenario. It's the same principles that apply with Forex. Forex is a long-term game. You have to be able to understand that each trade is independent of the previous one. And if you can't control that, when you start trading, take one trade a day, call it a day. Whether it's a win or a loss, just stop. Because you're not at the mental mindset to say, hey, I just took a loss. I'm okay. I'm going to carry forward and I'm going to take the other trade. Or I'm not in the right mindset to turn around and say, hey, this isn't going to work for me at this point. So how do I succeed in Forex? You join an education group. So you're here at the signs, you're going to be working with a whole bunch of people. Ask a lot of questions, read, practice, experiment. These are all various elements that you'd want to work through and that will help you progress. How do I fail? This is the biggest thing. When I hear people talk to me about how they haven't progressed, these are some of the key things that people have done. They sit by themselves and they they turn on a bunch of webinars, they read books, they do all this analysis all by themselves. And they think that they're going to sit there, they're going to absorb it by osmosis, they're going to have it come into their head, and they're going to be able to do this. Or they turn around and say to me, Ted, I just watched every single webinar. And I said, you just wasted like 72 hours of your time. The idea behind reading or watching webinars or reviewing documents or things like that is for you to scan the information, go through it, and pick out points that relate to how you're trading. Because not everything in every book is going to be beneficial for you. So someone who says, Ted, how many books did you read? And I say, I read about 15 to 18 books. And they're like, oh, wow, you must have a lot of information. No, because I wasn't reading every book page for page. I was skimming the books. I had a list of information that I was looking for, and I was looking for that information in those books. I was taking bits and pieces of those various books and formulating my own ideas. It's the same thing when you watch this webinar. Maybe there's key points in this webinar you already know, and you're like, well, Ted, you're talking out of your ass. I don't need to listen to this section. But then there's other parts where you're like, hey, I didn't know that. That's something that I can apply to what I'm doing, or that was a missing link to what I've been doing. This is how you study. This is how you progress. This is how you become a trader. You don't sit there and read 20 books and say, okay, I know everything about price action. That's fine. That's not the point of studying. You're not taking a test. Nobody's going to ask you, what does an engulfing pattern look like? Nobody's going to write that on a piece of paper. You're not going to make money by knowing on a piece of paper what that looks like. You have to understand how that relates to the market and what it's doing in the market and how you're going to be profitable or how you're going to be able to minimize or preserve your capital. That is what you're doing. You're taking information and you're applying it. Similar to when you do math, if you're in a math class, you look in the back of the book, the answer is so easy. Oh, I knew that answer. Oh, man, 2 plus 2, 4. Oh, man, you know what? I knew that. And then as soon as someone turns around and says, what's 200 plus 200? Now you're sitting there and saying to yourself, oh, well, like nobody told me about this question. How am I supposed to do this? I don't know how to do this, because now you don't have the back of the book. It's the same thing when you're trading. Well, how was I supposed to know that was going to happen? But did you look at the higher time frames? Oh, no, I forgot. I didn't prepare myself. That's exactly the point, is applying the information. As you become a more competent trader, as you gain more experience, the information that you apply becomes subconscious. I know my rules. I know I look at higher time frames. I know I look at the specific times of a candle. I know I look at specific hours of the day. I know I look at specific sessions. I know I look at specific pairs. I don't have to remind myself of that anymore. That's just an innate ability that I have because I've created a routine for myself. And